Hello, welcome back to Appreciating Theatre. Today we are going to see ritualistic theatre. So now let us see in detail what is ritualistic theatre. Ritual theatre quite simply is the enactment of a myth or archetypal story with the intention of bringing about healing, usually to resolve an issue, to deal with a difficult life experience, to restore depleted energies, or to ease a transition. So, ritual theatre is closely related to religious rituals, and usually they enact a myth. Myth means ഐതിഹ്യം or അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പുരാണ കഥ. That's the meaning of archetypal story. The intention of this enactment or this play is to bring about healing. Healing usually either inner healing or external healing, and it also has the intention of solving our problems, to deal with life experience, or to restore exhausted energies when you feel you are down or you have lost your spirit, and also to ease a transition whenever you have a transition in life, change, sudden change. Sometimes you may not be able to cope with that. So ritual theatre is trying to help people in trouble or in problems. And to see the meaning of rituals, what is this definition of rituals given here by Schechner. Rituals are used to manage potential conflicts regarding status, power, space, and gender. So rituals are everyday activities that we do. So there are religious and also other non-religious rituals. Every day we do a lot of things, like after getting up you brush your teeth, take your breakfast. So these are all actually rituals, repeated actions. But in religion these rituals have a different meaning. In Malayalam, rituals means either ആചാരം അനുഷ്ഠാനങ്ങൾ എന്നൊക്കെയാണ് പറയുന്നത്. Performing rituals help people get through difficult periods of transition. Ritual is also a way for people to connect to a collective, even mythic past, to build social solidarity, to form a community. So the main idea behind rituals is to keep people together. Collective means the group of people, or maybe a society or community. The 20th century marked a dramatic change in the way performance was perceived and carried out. So it is in the 20th century that people wanted to make some change in theatre. They wanted to bring back the ritualistic spirit of theatre. From a text-based representative act, it turned into a self-sufficient reality where emotions and ideas were transmitted through metatextual elements like voice, body movements, and breath. So traditionally the theatre is based on script. The drama is already there, and by enacting that scripted matter, they were trying to convey a message. That is text-based representative act. But here in ritualistic theatre, they are trying to go beyond the text. They are trying to transmit or convey through voice or body movements and also breath. And they don't so much depend on text or script. This change that allowed the evolution of performance as a form of visual art, independent of its theatrical progenitors, has its roots in the nostalgia for the origins of theatre and the interest in ancient and primitive rituals. So this change in outlook, that is trying to go back to the roots, that is found in the nostalgia for the origins of theatre. You know what is my nostalgia? When you look back and long for the past, that is nostalgia. Here, people are trying to get back to the roots of theatre, that is the ritualistic nature of theatre. The interest for the ritual is a romantic idea that started to become popular in the 19th century, evolving into an in-depth research and an attempt to introduce some of its elements in contemporary artistic practices during the 20th century. So, people started to get this idea of ritualistic theatre as early as in the 19th century, but it came into implementation level only in the 20th century, when people try to practice or implement the ideas. Theatre emerged in different societies worldwide from myth and ritual, storytelling, imitation and fantasy. So, this is the root of or the origin of theatre in various parts of the world, in different countries. The origin is more or less same. It is from the myth, stories related to religion, related to creation, all that. In the West, the origins of the theatre are usually located in the rituals and myths of ancient Greece. We have seen in the first class about Greek theatre. That is the origin of Western theatre. According to Aristotle's Poetics, theatre is rooted in the pagan rituals to honor god Dionysus in Greece. So, we have already seen that how the festivities related to the god Dionysus. That is where theatre started. In these rituals, there was no form of representation. Here, representation here means actually the characters who are representing some ideas or a person. Apart from the chorus, that means the only representation was done through chorus. That is dressed as satyrs. So, this group of musicians were dressed as satyrs. Satyrs are actually some mythological creatures, half men and half gods. In one of these festivities, the leading man of the chorus, the Koryphaios, got out of the circle of the chorus and started a spontaneous dialogue with the satyrs. So, gradually what happened was that one of the members of the chorus started kind of dialogue with the rest of the chorus. So, they replied by singing, and that was the birth of the theatre. So, this interaction with the chorus and their reply in singing, that was the origin of theatre, at least in the West. Little by little, adding a plot, stage set, costumes, characters, it evolved into its classical form. So, during the course of time, theatre became very elaborate and systematic to its classical form. Although the classical plays had very little in common with the original rituals, they were still performed during religious festivities. So, once theatre progressed and evolved, they had nothing to do with the festivities or religion, but still you find that some of the plays were enacted during festivals. Even today, the word tragedy, literally in Greek, the song of the gods, stays as a reminder of the original chorus of satyrs. So, the word tragedy comes from song of the gods, which goes back to the chorus. This narration is largely a myth. Even so, it reflects the idea that the non-textual elements that constitute theatricality and performativity preceded the evolution of theatrical text. So, this narration during the chorus, this narration of the myth, it reflects the idea of non-textual elements, that is not represented in the script. So here theatricality means the very drama, performance itself, and performativity means actually the effect of that drama, that change that is brought out in the audience. That's the meaning of performativity. So performance is actually meant either to entertain or to bring changes in the behavior of audience. That's the meaning of performativity. So this aspect of theatre preceded the evolution of theatrical text. That means it went before. That means the non-textual elements were already there before it transformed into text-based theatre or theatrical text. The nostalgia for the ancient rituals that lead to the genesis of theatre starts to emerge in the late 19th century. So people started looking back to the ritualistic tendency or the spirit of theatre as early as 19th century with the philosopher Nietzsche's essay, The Birth of Tragedy Out of the Spirit of Music. So in this essay, the German philosopher Nietzsche was trying to bring back that spirit of ritualistic theatre into the modern theatre. In this essay, Nietzsche states that the theatre should regain some of its Dionysian force that was lost throughout the centuries, tamed by the Apollonian spirit. So here he is trying to distinguish between two various types of spirits. One is the Dionysian spirit, the other one is Apollonian spirit. We need to explain that these two are actually two gods of the god Zeus. The Zeus had two sons, that is Dionysus and Apollo. According to him, the Dionysian stands for the primal force of creation, still formless and chaotic. So the god of Dionysus, the god of wine, fertility and all that. Until the Apollonian measure and harmony give shape to it, transforming it into a work of art. So in the beginning you find the spirit of ritualism, that is the spirit of Dionysian spirit, the Dionysian force. But later on you find the Apollonian measure and harmony trying to make the theatre more logical, more systematic and rational, changing it into a work of art. So that is a result of long evolution that took place in theatre. For Nietzsche, the original dramatic phenomenon of the chorus transforms the actor and the surrounding crowd. So according to Nietzsche, the dramatic phenomenon means the performance, the dramatic performance of the chorus changes the actor and also the surrounding crowd. So it brings about change not only in the actor but also the spectators. In Greek mythology, Apollo and Dionysus are both sons of Zeus. Zeus is the supreme god. He is the king of gods. And Apollo is the god of the sun, of rational thinking and order, and appeals to logic, prudence and purity. So the god Apollo stands for rational thinking, order, logic, prudence and purity, whereas Dionysus is almost the opposite of that. He is a god of wine and dance, irrationality and chaos, and appeals to emotions and instincts. The ancient Greeks did not consider the two gods to be opposites or rivals, although they were often entwined by nature. So they did not consider these two gods as opposing to each other, but they were always found together, even in nature. These ideas have a profound impact on Artaud's theories about the renewal of theatre, as well as we shall see later on in this chapter. I hope you remember this great playwright Antonin Artaud, who is closely related to the theatre of cruelty. On the other hand, the quest for primitivism and ritualism lies at the roots of performance art. So, ritualistic theatre and performance art both are very closely related. So, the desire or quest for primitivism. Primitivism is actually lack of sophistication. That is, we are going back to the origin, the primitive, the primal state of theatre, and also ritualism. Both are closely related. So, performance art is also trying to bring back both primitivism and ritualism in theatre. Following Nietzsche's line, Artaud believes that the theatre should be rescued from its servitude to psychology and human interest. So, just like Nietzsche, Artaud also believes that theatre should be protected from its servitude. Here means slavery to psychology and human interest. So, in the course of time, what happens to theatre is that they try to please or entertain people, or try to serve the needs of the public. If you look at the Romantic period and all that, even Shakespeare, they were trying to cater to the needs of a particular category of people, like the kings or knights. So, the original spirit of theatre is somehow lost here. So, shifting the focus from the objective and descriptive external world to the internal world, the metaphysical aspect of man. So, that is what ritualistic theatre is trying to do. Not trying to focus on the external world or the objective, trying to mirror the world, just like they say art is an imitation of life. So, that is not the intention of ritualistic theatre. They are trying to go to the internal world or the spiritual world, that is the metaphysical aspect of man. His vision for the theatre includes a resurrection of its mystical quality and a creation of a theatrical language that is not virtual but real, where man must reassume his place between dream and events. So, according to Nietzsche, the theatre has to go back, or it has to return to its mystical element, and trying to create a theatrical language that is not virtual but real language, which can really relate to people, where man must reassume his place between dream and events. Here, events means reality. So, it is not either dream or reality, but there is a via media, there is a middle path between dream and reality, and that is where man should find his place. The quest for primitivism and ritualism lies at the roots of performance art. Just like ritualistic theatre, the performance art also is trying to go back to the spirit of primitivism and also ritualism. And performance art started in the early 20th century in pre-war Italy and Russia. That is where performance art originated. The Italian futurists sought new ways to propagate their ideas and their aesthetic, which praised the machines and provokingly supported war as a generative force, whereas they condemned ancient culture and the love of the past. So, shockingly, this performance art was trying to propagate or trying to support war or machines and all that, and they also condemned ancient culture and past and all that. During their futurist evenings, they searched for new ways of interacting with the public, often turning to scandalous acts that outrage the spectators. So, these futurist theatre people, they try to shock the audience, just like the theatre of cruelty. What Artaud did was something very similar. They are trying to enact some immoral aspect of human behavior, trying to shock them. Thus, the audience never remain neutral. So, usually some support that, and some of course oppose. So the audience cannot remain neutral, they have to take sides. It got involved in an event organized and controlled by the artist. So their aim was to get the audience involved in the performance. Similarly, the Russian futurists resorted to scandals in order to get the public's attention. However, in contrast to Marinetti, who asked for the demolition of the Archopolis, they projected their influence from Russian icons, primitive painting, the Lubok, which is an illustrated traditional stories and folklore poetry. So, Russian futurists also try to shock the audience through scandals or immoral incidents which try to shock the public. Acropolis actually is a fortified city in the Athens, which stands for tradition and all that. That means they want to destroy all kind of traditions. Without any direct reference to the past or future, but driven by complete nihilism, the Dadaists organized their own performances in Cabaret Voltaire, a nightclub based in Zurich, the only island of peace in World War II Europe. There is another theatre group known as Dadaists. They were, of course, driven by nihilism. Nihilism is a philosophy where they reject all kinds of religious and moral principles. So they performed in nightclubs and all that. The Dadaists praised the absurd and abandoned any traditional means of expression in art, music and poetry. So just like in the theatre of the absurd, they also tried to oppose all kinds of tradition, because they wanted to bring some change in the existing style of theatre. So Dadaism was an art movement of the European avant-garde in the early 20th century. It was just like theatre of cruelty, theatre of the absurd. Dadaism also was part of the avant-garde movement or the experimental theatre. Dadaists frequently used artistic and literary methods that were deliberately incomprehensible. So their style of performance was beyond the understanding of the public. Incomprehensible means not easily understood. Their theatrical performances and manifestos were often designed to shock or bewilder, with the aim of startling the public into a reconsideration of accepted aesthetic values. So they wanted to bring about change in the society. So deliberately they enacted shocking scenes and all that. So their aim was to change the accepted norms of behavior or accepted aesthetic values of the public. To this end, the Dadaists used novel materials, including discarded objects found in the streets, and new methods such as allowing chance to determine the elements of their works. So in order to bring out this shock or new outlook, they used new novel materials, even waste materials found on the streets and all that. And they also allowed chance to determine the elements. That means their performance was not preconceived or well planned. That means it was almost like spontaneous acts. On the spur of the moment, they were enacting the scenes. Their poems consist of babbling syllables with a meaningless succession. Their music was improvised noise. So what they were trying to convey was meaningless things. So there was no logical script and all that. Babbling means some noisy sound they produced without any meaning. And their music also was improvised noise. We cannot call it as music. The shows combined elements from cabaret shows, the burlesque and primitive rituals. So they had elements of cabaret show. Burlesque means kind of exaggerated comedy show, and also primitive rituals. Now we come to Indian performing arts. Coming to Kerala, we have got this Kudiyattam. It is a ritualistic Sanskrit theatre of Kerala, the one still living, more than 1000 years old, ancient form of classical dramatic dance theatre in India, which is also recognized by the UNESCO as one of the masterpieces of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity. So this performing art called Kudiyattam, it is very old, as old as 1000 years, and it is also recognized by UNESCO as a heritage of humanity. The Kudiyattam tradition of enacting classical Sanskrit dramas is closely tied to Kerala's Hindu temples. So it is closely related to Hindus' culture and their religious performances. Mostly they are Sanskrit dramas. It is a comprehensive theatre form that has existed since before the 10th century AD and is India's oldest theatre to have been continuously performed. So it is very old, as old as 10th century, and they have been performing continuously. There is clear evidence of efforts to reform Kudiyattam by one king, Kulasekara by the 9th to the 10th century AD. So in the between 9th and 10th century AD, this king Kulasekara tried to reform this art form. As such, reforms give rise to the supposition of a long-standing tradition. Literary sources assume that Kudiyattam has a continuous history of at least 1000 years. So the very fact that this king tried to reform, it means that it has been there for a long time. The performances of a drama usually last several days, and enacting in the original form of a single act may even take up to 41 days. So a single act may go up to 41 days to perform. It will begin at 9 p.m. after the close of rituals in the sanctum sanctorium of the temple and continue till midnight, sometimes till 3 a.m. before the commencement of the morning rituals. So this performance will be throughout the night from 9 to 3 a.m. Sanctum sanctorium means actually in Malayalam we call it as Sri Kovil, that is the holiest part of the temple. The complete performance of the drama from beginning to end is performed on the last day. So on the last day there is a kind of summing up from the start to the end. The performance takes place in a Kootambalam, the temple of dance drama, a structure built within the compound walls of a temple according to the rules of Natya Shastra. So this Kootambalam is exclusively for performing art, and usually it is found inside the temple complex. This makes Kudiyattam the oldest surviving form of Sanskrit theatre. So we can assume that Kudiyattam is one of the or the oldest surviving form of Sanskrit theatre in India or in the world. Here we are going to see some pics from around the world of ritualistic theatre practices. You find even the tribals performing, even some religious groups. This is a Kudiyattam and Chakyar Kuthu. Now we have got Kathakali, and of course the typical Theyyam, which is also very closely related to temple rituals. So with that we come to the end of ritualistic theatre. Thank you. Have a great day ahead of you.